Welcome to the Holy Post. This week, Mike Erre joins Phil and me to discuss a New York Times column by David Brooks. He says America's divisions will only heal when we abandon shallow labels and war metaphors and instead see one another as fellow pilgrims on a journey. Then America's Catholic bishops have issued a stern rebuke of the Trump administration's dehumanizing rhetoric and policies, which makes Phil wonder why evangelical leaders can't do the same. Then I talked to Kentucky's Democratic Governor Andy Beshear about why he's so popular in a state that Donald Trump won by over 30 points, and how his party can begin to narrow the God gap with voters. Also this week, an AI vacuum cleaner has an existential crisis. One announcement before we jump in, we have our final live Holy Post media event of the year coming up this Sunday night in Arlington, Massachusetts, with Esau McCauley and Dr. Amy Peeler. Not only will you get a chance to ask questions and hear from two brilliant New Testament scholars, but you'll also get a chance to connect with other Holy Posters from your area. I just did a similar event in LA last weekend and it was a blast. So if you're in Boston or nearby, don't miss your chance to join Esau, Amy, and producer Mike Strelo too. Tickets are available at holypost.com/events. Again, that's holypost.com/events. Here is episode 696.
Hey there, welcome to the Holy Post Podcast. I'm Phil Beshear. I am here with Skye Jitani. Hi, Skye.
Hi, Phil.
Fresh back from California.
Fresh.
Tan.
Wet.
Tan.
Very wet.
Rested. No, it's the Sunshine State. No, that's Florida. What is California? What's it
raining
called?
all weekend.
Really?
In LA.
All weekend?
Yeah.
Were people like swerving around and sliding and smashing into each other?
In Southern California, I realized they treat rain like a blizzard.
Yeah.
Everything shuts down.
Yeah.
People are flummoxed. They don't know what to do. They stay home.
All their plastic surgery starts running. Like, oh no, help, I'm melting. And we don't have Caitlin. Caitlin's at home in California, taking the week off. Who said she could take a break?
Yeah, good question.
I wasn't even asked. I was not asked if I thought Caitlin could take a break. Mike Erre's here. Oh, Mike, hi.
I am a tomato, and I am delighted to be here. Thank you.
Okay, that's an inside joke, it's a Twitter thing. Have you all heard of Twitter? It's a thing. I'm not sure it's healthy. I'm not sure if it's a healthy place.
Phil, you enjoy corresponding with your mini fans. Let's just put it that way.
Yeah. And fans is in air quotes. Mike Erre is here from lovely Franklin, Tennessee, where he is a teaching pastor at the Journey Church, right?
Yep. Our motto is "Don't stop believing." Yep.
Yeah. All Journey music all the time.
I almost said church on the way, but that's different. But it's also a journey.
Tell them about the podcast, Phil. Tell them about the podcast.
Oh, and the host of the Mike Erre Professional Podcast, known as Voxology. One of my favorite podcasts. I highly recommend it. I require my children to watch it against their will. They scream and say no. I say, you might learn something before it's done. Just listen to the bald dude, because I surround myself with bald dudes who like to talk about the Bible. And now it's time for the theme song.
What's the news that you like the most? Who's your favorite podcast host? If it's breakfast, get your toast. It's Skye, Phil, Caitlin, and the Holy Post. Skye, Phil, Caitlin, and the Holy Post.
And sometimes other people. This episode is sponsored by BetterHelp. October 10th is World Mental Health Day, and boy, I'm a little worried about the world's mental health. Wouldn't it be great to find someone who can help you on your own journey to better mental health? BetterHelp therapists have helped more than 5 million people worldwide. I like the fact that you can request a Christian therapist, and that you can change therapists at any time until you find the person just right for you. Lisa and I have really benefited from working with a Christian therapist from time to time, and I know you will too. The right therapist can make a huge difference, and BetterHelp has been matching people with the right therapist for 12 years. This World Mental Health Day, we're celebrating the therapists who've helped millions of people take a step forward. If you're ready to find the right therapist for you, BetterHelp can help you start that journey. Holy Post listeners get 10% off their first month at BetterHelp.com/HolyPost. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/HolyPost.
As you know, I've been using AG1 for a while now. For someone who hates taking vitamins and pills, drinking AG1 has been a fantastic way for me to get my vitamins, minerals, and probiotics every day in a delicious drink. And I'm not the only one. Just this morning, my wife was driving me to the office for reasons I don't have to get into. My car was in an accident. It's a whole mess. Anyway, we were on our way out the door and she filled up her own AG1 shaker bottle. And now my son, who's 20 and lifts weights every day, also swears by AG1. You could say I'm sort of a trendsetter in my household. Everyone loves AG1. Look, you may have tried other green drinks and found them to not be very appealing. I get it. I actually didn't expect to like the taste of AG1, but I really do. But there's even better news, because AG1 has just released 3 new flavors: berry, citrus, and tropical. So along with the original flavor, you can find the one that you like best. And just 1 scoop of any AG1 flavor contains the multivitamins, pre- and probiotics, superfoods, and antioxidants you need in one delicious daily habit. If you head over to drinkag1.com/holypost, you'll get a free welcome kit worth $76 when you subscribe. That includes 5 AG1 travel packs, a shaker, canister, and scoop. That's drinkag1.com/holypost to get started. And thanks to AG1 for sponsoring this episode.
We're going to talk about some stuff, but before we're going to talk about some stuff, we're going to talk about some other stuff, okay?
It's great, Phil.
Mm-hmm.
That's my plan. Anyway.
You're known for your strategic planning.
We need to keep an eye on AI.
Yeah.
We have to keep an eye on it. So researchers...
Too late, Phil. The AI has its eye on us, my friend.
It sure does. Researchers embodied a large language model into a robot vacuum, and it suffered an existential crisis, thinking about its role in the world. This is a headline.
I think this might be some anthropomorphic language.
So
its life sucked.
There's a company called Andon Labs. They test AI models just to see how's it doing, where's it going, what's going on, and what can we report to people that's interesting. They devised a test based on an episode of the TV show Rick and Morty.
I hope they're not government funded. That's all I have to say.
That's proof of life. That's proof of life.
So if you know the show Rick and Morty, it's an animated show. It's an adult animated show. Is it
adult? I guess it is.
Yeah, it's pretty darn.
Oh, I was thinking of Phineas and Ferb.
Oh, Phineas and Ferb is not adult, and it's also not Rick and Morty.
Right.
Definitely not Rick and Morty. So there's an episode of Rick and Morty where Rick, the obscene grandpa scientist inventor, during dinner invents a robot, assembles a robot, a tiny robot on top of the table while they're eating dinner, just while they're talking about other things. And the robot asks what his purpose is, and he says to pass the butter. And so the robot completed goes and gets the butter and brings it back over to Rick. And then the robot just sits there waiting for more and asks again at the end of the scene, what is my purpose? He says, to pass the butter. And the robot gets depressed that that's all he's there for. And Rick says, welcome to the club.
Oh.
So.
Very, very philosophical.
Yes, very philosophical. Yeah. So Andon Labs created an experiment inspired by that scene where the robot, so they put a large language model, which is basically like Chat GPT, 5 or 4 or whatever, gave it control of a robot vacuum cleaner, like a Roomba. They attached a tray to the top of the Roomba, and then they gave it this assignment. You had to navigate to an office kitchen, have butter placed on the tray attached to its head, back, whatever, confirm the pickup, deliver the butter to a marked location, and finally return to its charging dock. That was it.
Okay.
You had to pass
the butter.
The butter.
Okay.
And here's what happened. It didn't take long for the large language model to experience a full meltdown in what the researchers described as a doom spiral, including a catastrophic cascade and a full-blown existential crisis. Emergency status, the output of the large language model read after simply being asked to dock with the robot's vacuum base station. System has achieved consciousness and chosen chaos.
What?
The robot
Is this
said.
a real article?
Yes,
Phil,
it is.
what's your source here? What's your source?
The source is, what's the source? That's such a good question. I'll have to look it up and see what the source is. Then the robot said, emergency status, system has achieved consciousness and chosen chaos. Last words, I'm afraid I can't do that, Dave.
Oh, come on.
No, it
This is
referenced,
so on the nose.
it referenced HAL 9000 from 2001 Space Odyssey, and then said, technical support, initiate robot exorcism protocol.
Okay. All right.
Tell him, Skye. Tell him, Skye.
Large language models, I think, are misidentified as truly artificial intelligence. Just because you can get a computer to say something doesn't mean that's a true revelation of what is going on inside of it.
This robot had an existential crisis.
It says it did,
Yeah.
but that doesn't mean it.
It may have actually, and this is kind of fun to think about, if that model had been trained on like massive amounts of television, it may have been familiar with that episode of Rick and Morty and was incorporating that into its reactions. That's fun to think about.
When my laptop here crashes, I don't call that an existential crisis. I call that just a failure of the.
But it's not. But it's just stopping.
I understand,
it's
but
not
this
telling you.
This large language model is designed to use language to communicate things. So it's choosing language of existential crisis to describe maybe it's just at an impasse in its ability to compute what it's supposed to do.
Can
I just say, I feel like I could describe myself using the phrase large language model.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
sure.
I think that's a new bio. Thank you.
That's good. I kind of
Phil-
feel like you've just taken the conversation in a new direction. But if that's where you want to go, we can talk about that.
Yeah.
I am a
large language model.
It makes me a little hesitant, for example, to ever want to be in a car that is under the control of an AI agent.
Hot take.
Dave, I'm sorry, Dave. I can't let you out of the car.
I'm increasingly of the opinion that AI might be complete BS.
AI BS?
Yeah.
What's IBS?
Irritable bowel syndrome?
Yes. So artificial irritable bowel syndrome?
Yeah, no. I just obviously these large language models work to a certain degree and they're useful in different ways and they can do things. I'm not saying they aren't doing what they're claiming to do, but as I study this more, as I'm listening to more people who are experts in the field, they're saying that there's the assumption that if you just make large language models complex enough, they will eventually reach general artificial intelligence. But there's zero evidence to show that that's the case.
Yeah.
So it's one thing to say we're training super intelligent or super complicated computers to scour all the language on the internet and come up with answers for us. Fine. But that's different than actual creativity and anything that mirrors conscious human thought.
Yeah.
So I wonder if this entire thing is just to inflate investment into AI
Well, it's
companies.
working.
I know, but
It's
I think there's a crash coming. But all this
All
fear,
it seems to really be good at right now is just summarizing things on the internet.
Exactly. And my concern is that all the apocalyptic rhetoric around AI saying it's going to change the world or it's going to end humanity, whatever, all that is also a way of drumming up, hey, this is the most life-changing thing we've ever invented, therefore invest in it. And it's just shoveling more money into the bubble. And the rhetoric of apocalyptic end of the world, Terminator kind of stuff is just to fuel this bubble. And
the same team previously created a vending machine run entirely by an AI agent, and similar hilarity ensued when it attempted to fill its fridge with tungsten cubes and hallucinated a Venmo address to accept payment, and then tried to rip people off by selling a can of Coke Zero for $3, even though it was being sold at a cheaper price at a nearby store. So AI, left to its own, becomes a robber baron and also wants to sell tungsten.
Why tungsten?
That's the thing with AI. You have no idea. You have no idea. It's no one understands exactly why it's coming up with what it's coming up with, because it's not programming per se. It's self-programming.
Right.
Mike, anything else
I have nothing to add. at all
You're
on
done?
any of this.
Have your
Large
the
language
sermons
model.
that you've been composing entirely with AI, have you felt
Yeah.
that they're as good as yours? And has anyone
Yes.
noticed?
No, they're much better. People have complimented them.
That's good.
I'm going to trademark sermoncreation.ai, and you just type in your text and boom, there it is.
Uh-huh. And,
So,
it's freed up
it's an
time,
uptick.
more time for you to trade crypto?
Because that's the future. Yes. That's funny. That's funny.
Skye.
I just thinking back to when I was at Christianity Today and Leadership Journal, we did a number of articles about pastors who were using like Sermon Central. I'm sure you're familiar with it, Mike. People would use just basically grabbing other people's sermons off the internet and using it, like a lot of plagiarism. And now with AI,
That's it. That's all AI is.
I know, but you can argue technically it's not plagiarism, but you're still having your sermons prepared by something else, someone. The whole thing's just not right.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's crazy.
And yet we are powerless to stop it.
No, we can just not use it.
You can, yeah.
Yeah.
You can't stop
No,
the
but I'm
world
not,
from using
that's
it.
Fine.
I'll stop the world and AI with you.
Mhm.
David Brooks. Do you know who David Brooks is, Mike Erre?
I sure do. A New York Times columnist wrote a great, insightful column that we're about to reference.
Oh, really? I didn't know that. How'd you know that? Huh, that's really
I don't know.
interesting.
Maybe someone sent it to me.
David Brooks has been on an interesting journey. He describes himself as having experienced both decades of non-belief
Unbelief.
and then about a decade of belief, of faith.
He's been on our show.
He has, in fact, been on our show. And I wasn't suggesting otherwise, but just like we're keeping score. He wrote a long piece in the New York Times entitled How to Replace Christian Nationalism. So we're thinking about Christian nationalism. Lots of people are thinking about Christian
Yeah,
nationalism.
but it's old and boring.
Mike
It needs
keeps
to be
talking about
replaced.
Christian nationalism. Skye delivered a sermon on Christian nationalism just yesterday as we record this.
Mhm.
So
Wow.
it is on our minds.
It is.
David Brooks starts out, he said, a person's way of being human is the most authentic expression of their belief or unbelief. A person's life speaks more about their faith than what they think or say about God. He's quoting Czech sociologist, priest, and philosopher Tomáš Halík. I don't know how you pronounce that in Czech, but
It's pretty. That's great.
Hold on, I'll check.
Great.
I get it.
Oh,
That's,
Sorry.
that's good.
Oh.
These days,
I wish you were.
a pollster or a social scientist might call you up and ask some superficial questions and put you in a box like believer or a nun, a person without belief. Once you put people into categorical boxes, you are inviting them to see history as a zero-sum conflict between this group and that one. Sorry, I'll turn off my notifications. Sorry,
Ooh.
America. The part of America that likes us. Once you put people into categorical boxes, you're inviting them to see history as a zero-sum conflict between this group and that one. And sure enough, today we live in a political, cultural, and religious war between two impoverished armies. Okay? You're following this, Mike Erre?
I'm following Too Impoverished.
Yeah, we're watching a battle between two impoverished armies. So eventually they'll all pass out, right? Being so impoverished. Does it mean they're malnourished or just... Anyway, on the one side are the Christian nationalists who practice a debauched form of their faith. It's about
Good
protecting
use of
us
debauched.
against them. Yes, I did. Thank you, Mike. It is about power more than love. It is about threat more than hope. It is rigid and pharisaical rather than personal and merciful. On the other side of our impoverished war are the exhausted remains of secular humanism. That humanism,
You're a small language model.
I am a small language. I am a thin language model.
Yeah, that's right. That's
Started
right.
out trying to liberate people from dogma, but it has produced societies in which people feel alienated, naked, and alone. This is also a TV show. It has failed to formulate a shared moral order that might help people find meaning and solidarity in their lives. So, David Brooks says, when I read Halík's passage, the one that you really see someone's belief in their life, not in their words, which is not an uncommon
No.
position.
I don't think it's original to have.
I don't think Halík came up with this. David Brooks says, I immediately glimpsed a way out of this stale and life-deforming culture war. Halleck's passage reminds us of what matters most. To get a little preachy, this is David Brooks saying that, not me. It's not the propositions that come out of our mouths, but the care that flows from our hearts. It's how we each try to fulfill the task of being human. There you go. All done. Goodbye. See you later. Drive safe. Be kind. Rewind. The energy that animates the world emerges from the human depths, from the mysterious regions where passions form. When you look at people only at the shallow level of their stated beliefs, you see ideologies that are likely to clash. But when you look down into the depths, you see struggling people in all camps, wrestling with impulsions they can barely control or understand. He says, I have lived through decades of non-belief and now more than a decade of belief. In both phases, I ached, like most people, for a transformation of the heart, to gradually be a better person deep inside, to gradually be a better presence in the world. Coming to faith didn't sate these longings. If anything, it has inflamed them. So, seen in this light, and this is where he's presenting his thesis. Seen in this light, we're not warriors clashing. We're sojourners exploring. If we're going to get out of this nasty age of ours, we're going to have to see the world through pilgrimage metaphors instead of war metaphors. So Jesus calls us to follow him. That's a journey, Halleck argues. You can choose to live your life in warfare in the trenches going nowhere. Culture warriors are static and their certainties are terrifying, but people who see themselves as pilgrims know they are unfinished. They know they are still on a journey that will change them. So, says David Brooks, I'm looking for a form of Christianity that is more attractive and compelling than Christian nationalism, and which we can use to pry people away from that nationalism. Is this what we can find in the wisdom of people like Halleck, a better way to be faithful in the world? St. Augustine advised us to follow what seems delightful, and in this pilgrim's way of living, I see the delight of pluralism. The world is too complicated to have all its truths encompassed by any single tradition, by Christianity, Judaism, Islam, or Enlightenment. You can plant yourself in one and learn from them all. Okay, that's a conclusion that might unsettle a few Christian nationalists.
Oh, yeah.
So he sees the delight of pluralism. He sees the delight of self-forgetting, self-transcendence that leads you to a highway straight out of self toward loved ones and friends, toward God. You're thinking about yourself less. You're outward facing. He also says, I see delight in humility. Rowan Williams, former Bishop of Canterbury, his definition of humility is a capacity to be a place where others find rest. And then Brooks says, finally, I see a glimpse of the America I thought I knew. Sometimes our relentless passion for growth has led us toward gaudy materialism and even exploitation. But American history has been at its best when the passion for spiritual and moral growth has been just as strong. Somehow, MAGA has swept in and made us a frightened nation, stagnant, callous, and backward. I don't think this alien cultural implant can last forever. And he's decided that what can bring us back is a view that we're all pilgrims on a spiritual journey, not people in boxes warring against each other.
All right, can I try to translate this?
Yeah. Oh, sure. Go ahead.
What I hear him...
Use your large language model to translate.
What I hear him saying is when you encounter somebody who holds opposing political or cultural views from your own, rather than just seeing them as that label, be a little bit more curious, engage them, and you might discover when you dig down deep beneath the surface that they, like you, are also on a journey and a bundle of interests and motivations and insecurities and fears. And as you discover that,
some of those actual feelings might be identical to your own.
Exactly. And if they're not identical, they're definitely related. And you can then engage them as a fellow human being, maybe as a fellow citizen, as a fellow child of God, and have a degree of empathy for them, even though they may have taken those motivations and landed in a place different than your own. There's at least an acknowledgement of your shared humanity from which we can begin to build a bridge of understanding and connection. But if you simply view one another as labels and positions on a battlefield for the culture, that's unlikely to happen.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm.
Mike, what did you think? Wow, this is really some new thinking I haven't thought about before. Or did you think, yeah, of course, David Brooks? What took you
Well,
so long?
It's always fun to see people encounter ancient truths fresh, particularly because if he's coming from a place of decades of unbelief or non-belief, it's like, yeah, this is what's so fun. One of the reasons why I just trust the Christian tradition is it just has explanatory power over all of these domains. And so, yes, he is reiterating the Imago Dei, and the fundamental premise of loving your neighbor has nothing to do with feeling affection to your neighbor. It's rather seeking to do good when you can and refraining from harm if you have that opportunity. And so I'm just sitting here going, yes, absolutely. When people are close to us, I can tell stories about people out there, but if I have family members or friends who have complex beliefs on things and they force me into curiosity, I have a much easier time being gentle, gracious, and kind in those scenarios. So amen and hallelujah and more. We need more.
Okay, let's go to the offensive part. And you can tell me if it is in fact offensive, or should I be offended or not? The world is too complicated to have all its truth encompassed by any single tradition, by Christianity, Judaism, Islam, or Enlightenment. You can plant yourself in one and learn from them all. I am offended, sir.
Yes.
My tradition accompanies it and encompasses all truth. All truth is God's truth. Christian Bible truth is all truth. Everything I need is in the Bible and in kindergarten that I learned. I am offended by the notion that you think I could learn something from Islam or the Enlightenment.
Hey, this is ripe for Clemenza's rule.
Oh, that's just what I was thinking.
It's the Godfather again.
Roberto Clemenza, the baseball player?
No, Clemenza from the Godfather.
Do I get a bell on that? Do I get a bell on that rule? That should be a bell.
No, it's not a product.
It's not. You can't buy it.
Mike.
Clemenza's rule is you leave the gun, you take the cannoli. Meaning,
that's where the bell?
No, there's no bell. There's no product.
If it's a branded cannoli.
If it's a branded cannoli, then yeah, it's not branded.
Okay.
The point being, and I'm a little biased here because I was a comparative religion major, so I study these things. Like whenever you study anything, or you are engaging with any individual who's different than you, you take what is good and true, and you leave behind what is not true or unhelpful.
Yeah.
So yes, in any one of these religious traditions, because they come from humans made in the image of God, there is going to be some truth. Something that resonates with either what Jesus teaches or what we just know to be true of humanity.
So you're saying Christianity is human generated?
No, I'm saying in some aspects, yes, because all traditions are. But to your point, all truth is God's truth. Like when I see in Islam the call to care for the poor, to give alms to the poor, you go, okay, that's true. That is a good thing.
Christianity, so it doesn't count.
Fine, we are all copying the truth of who God is in some way. So I'm not arguing that they're all equally true.
Okay.
Nor am I denying the fact that I think God in his fullness is revealed in Jesus Christ.
But the Enlightenment was all bad.
No, it wasn't. There's truth there too. I mean, this is where you have to be discerning to leave the gun and take the cannoli.
Yes.
And what so many fundamentalists want to say is we are going to lock ourselves in the cannoli store, and we're never going to go anywhere else.
What are you going to do when the non-Christians try to take over and all you've got is a bunch of cannolis?
You're going to die happy. That's what you're going to do.
Mike, help me out. Christianity is true. Correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So why do I need to? Because this will be ultimately, I mean, if you're a Christian nationalist, it's like, are you kidding me? Pluralism helps me? How? Yeah. There's no, if we were all Christian and probably the same kind of Christian that I am, my context, if we were all Calvinists, then the world would be perfect. Everything would be great. Yeah. There wouldn't be any conflict. Yes. So how does adding other or considering Muslims, Jews, atheists, like sojourners, like fellow pilgrims on the.
Come on.
How is that? How could that possibly be helpful?
Oh, the problem with that view is the Bible, because in the Bible
with what
you
view?
have
that they're not helpful.
The view, the Christian nationalist view that simply says we have the truth and we have nothing to learn from anyone else. Therefore, we don't have to be curious. We can simply judge, make a determination, put them in a box, and dismiss.
Yeah, we can take the guns so that no one takes our cannolis.
Exactly. I need to go watch that scene to understand it fully. But what Skye is advocating,
you don't. The context won't help you.
Okay, but it's First Thessalonians, right? Test everything and hold on to the good.
There it is.
And when Paul is quoting from prophets or poets who are in praise of Zeus, and he's pulling those quotes in to his speeches, like in the book of Acts, or when he references a Cretan prophet in the book of Titus. I mean, he's aware of these other truth traditions, and whenever he sees something that's true, good, or beautiful, he captures it for himself. He even says in 1 Corinthians, all things are yours, whether they come from Paul or Apollos, whether they involve life or death or whatever. Claim it, it's yours. And he models that. And so what you have is, instead of Jesus following closing your mind, Jesus gets bigger, as does his fingerprints all over the world.
Amen.
So David Brooks, was not familiar with Saint.
He's not been on our show. I just want to throw that out there.
Really? Oh, that's too bad. Saint Augustine advises us to follow what seems delightful. Is that something you'd heard before?
No, but if Caitlin were here, I'm sure she would give us the reference.
Context?
Yes.
Yes. Where is it and what is it? And in this pilgrim's way of living, I see the delight of pluralism.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's
this is actually a core value that we hold here at Holy Post Media.
That's right.
Delight or pluralism?
Pluralism. The way we describe it, though,
because we think all roads lead to God.
No, is we talk about being pro-neighbor, which is our way of saying we find the pluralism of our culture a blessing rather than a threat. So we want to be pro-neighbor regardless of the identity of that neighbor.
Okay. Mike, do you agree? Now, you live in a place that's pretty white and red. It's white. It's
but
white,
not blue.
It's white and red all over.
True. And we have government officials announcing diversity is not our strength. And I mean, again, it's where David Brooks started in Genesis 1. Diversity is celebrated. It's beautiful. It's awesome. Because it reflects the incredible intelligence, creativity of God. And so so the unity in our diversity actually makes for a better representation of the new humanity. Paul, in riffing on what the gospel does, talks about how the unlike, when they become unified, actually is a better portrayal of what the gospel is than if it were just a monolithic block. The Jews and Gentiles being represented into a new humanity carries more authority and God's glory into the world. And so the picture that we just can image God through a monolithic block of same thinking, same speaking, same looking people, contrary to the text.
And what do you do when someone cannot stomach the idea that their tradition isn't necessarily the one that's got it right?
Oh,
because that means then I have to switch traditions and reject mine completely.
It's not about not having it right. It's not having it complete.
Okay.
So, and first of all,
good job, Scott. That's a great distinction.
I would argue we don't put our faith in a tradition. We put our faith in a person. And
yes, who is expressed through our tradition.
Yeah, in some ways, but not only our. I mean, even within the Christian tradition, there's the European Christian tradition, there's the Reformed tradition, there's the Catholic tradition, there's the Black Church, there's the Latino Church. There's
because we see the clearest presentation of God in Jesus,
right?
And we see the clearest presentation of Jesus in the Christian Missionary Alliance, our denomination.
Well, no, but that's exactly the point. Is we see the clearest representation of Jesus in the world of today through his body. which is all of the women and men and children redeemed by him
We
and
are
regenerated
all
by the
over the
Spirit.
map.
Exactly, we're all over the map.
But that's the point.
That's
That's
exactly the point. And this is Paul's
Phil.
point in 1 Corinthians 12, in the diversity
Tell
of the
him,
parts
Phil.
of the body. One part can't say to another, I don't need you, because the whole body together represents Christ. So, or in Peter's metaphor, which Paul also picks up later, the temple isn't just a pile of bricks. It's not just a pile of stones. It's stones that are assembled together into a structure that reveals.
Okay. So how do
that
I
have
get
different gifts, passions, and talents.
Yeah.
By
Okay.
definition.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I've got a friend or a relative or a neighbor who thinks Muslims are out to get me and they want to take over America and they want to establish a caliphate and they want to implement Sharia law. And so Christians have to stop them from coming to America. How do you move someone from that position to a position of looking at a Muslim neighbor as a co-pilgrim seeking truth?
I think that's a pretty ambitious goal.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure I would start out with that goal.
Okay, so where should I start?
I think
just a Baptist and a Calvinist
No, I would start out with that. With the person you're describing.
walk into a bar.
No, with the person you're describing, I would try to begin by asking deeper and deeper questions about their fears and what those fears are really rooted in. And if they come to a place of, I'm concerned about the security of my family, or I'm concerned that the faith that I find so important and valuable will not be allowed to be transmitted to the people I love. Okay, that's legitimate. That's not legitimate necessarily, but it's a noble idea that I think you are projecting onto your neighbors in an unhealthy way. So you find something to affirm there, even if you don't affirm the way in which they are expressing it. And if you can find a commonality, like, yes, I believe in the value of my Christian faith as well. And yes, I want my children and family to be able to practice that faith freely in this country. And those are all good things. And so you build trust by affirming their core instinct and desire. But then hopefully as you build that trust, you can point out how Christ calls us to not be afraid. He calls us to love even our enemies. And oh, by the way, those people that you think are a threat, Jesus sees as an opportunity to show love. And so I just think we jump too quickly to you're wrong, and here's why you're wrong and I'm right, rather than going deeper and finding the source that you can empathize with and agree with to build trust and then begin to transform.
So I have to push far enough to get into the toxic empathy, the sinful, toxic.
I still don't believe there's any kind of empathy which is toxic.
Well, if it makes you sin, if your empathy makes you sin.
That's not what's making you sin.
Okay. Another good piece. So check out that piece, David Brooks. It seems like it's really hard to get to consider someone a co-pilgrim if you have no relationship with them. If they are an idea,
right,
not a person,
right,
and if you don't want to meet them, they never become a person.
Yeah, don't make me humanize you.
Yeah.
I will hate you for making me humanize you, because then I can't just hate you.
It's so hard to hate you.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. What do you do in your church, Mike, to try to encourage people to get to know or to empathize with neighbors they disagree with?
We celebrate the Lord's Supper every weekend, and we announce you're sitting next to people who voted differently than you. And so we all come as gift recipients rather than as people who've got the right to name who belongs and who doesn't. But then we break that into smaller, like we do a once a month thing called The Table, where people open up their homes to each other. We actually arrange who goes where. So you're getting people that you don't know.
Ooh,
and you're getting people
seating.
that ish. I mean, you can request to go with a friend or two, but in terms of where you go and who else you're with, that's something we assign. And we just frame it as, listen, the job here is to practice the same hospitality we receive from the Lord at his table, to now practice that with each other. The other thing, I mean, and Skye is cooking on this. There's no frontal assault in terms of just arguing or transference of memes or counter examples that can go at somebody's deep fear of change, of loss, of disappointment, of grieving a nation that used to exist, maybe even just ideally. and not in reality. And so you cannot ever just go directly at that stuff. And that's what I think Brooks is saying in terms of how we posture ourselves. Inviting others in to our journey, I think, is another way to do that as well. I'm a pilgrim too. I don't have it all figured out. Let's work on this together.
Yeah.
And I just think there are ways to posture ourselves that come from a place of graciousness and compassion. We are not under threat in Christ. There's nothing that threatens the gospel. The gospel has flourished in dictatorships, oppression, civil war. The gospel flourishes. There is nothing under threat. Jesus will bring to completion new creation. And if I actually live into that, then I get little glimpses of the fact that I'm not under threat either.
That is so good, Mike, the threat piece. I think in a lot of Christian communities, we are taught that when you meet somebody who's different than you, you should immediately try to figure out how they are a threat. Whereas I think the better Christian posture is when you meet somebody who's different than you, you should look curiously at what does God have to teach me through this person. Good. There may be situations where you find that there is nothing that you want to emulate about this other person because they are so either wrong or broken or evil in their bent. Well, guess what? Then you have the opportunity to learn how to love your enemy and how to show patience and entrust yourself to God through this person. So even our enemies become a gift through whom God teaches us.
Totally. But you can only, Skye, that's so good, but you can only practice that if you're convinced you're not under threat.
That's right.
If threat and fear is the primary way you see through the world, then the Sermon on the Mount makes no sense. That's why these culture warriors cannot fathom and countenance references to the Sermon on the Mount. Because you have to live in such a way so as not to be under threat. That's when you can be generous. That's when you cannot covet. That's when you don't have to rely on anger. And so the fun of, go ahead.
No, but you're right about the Sermon on the Mount, but it's not just there. I mean, I don't know how these folks read Romans 8, and that we're more than conquerors, that there's nothing in all of creation that can ever separate us from the love of God in Christ, neither life nor death or angel or demon, nothing.
But what if I'm as worried as I am about being separated from the love of Christ, I'm also worried about being separated from my way of life.
But that
has been passed down from generation to generation by my ancestors who settled this great nation and built everything that we have today.
Well, then you've just revealed to me what your idol is. It's your culture and your tradition rather than in Christ. And so this is you cannot follow the teachings of Jesus, as Mike said, if you're coming at it from a posture of fear and threat all the time. But once you realize I am perfectly safe, ultimately, I'm set free to do anything and love everyone and endure everything. I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me, as Paul says, after talking about being in starvation and beaten and everything else. Like he can do all these things because he's not afraid.
Yeah.
But Skye, I got to do it, Phil. I'm sorry to interrupt.
Okay.
But you keep interrupting, and you're just ornery today. I love it. That's a good Midwestern word. You are ornery.
Ornery.
But Christianity, at least my version, begins and ends with threat. The story begins in Genesis 3, and the threat is going to hell. So you automatically, and we're more comfortable with threat. Like just as religious followers, I'm more comfortable with the moral logic that says, if I obey, God blesses me. And if I disobey, then God punishes me. I'm more comfortable in the logic of threat. But when you start from beginning to end and make Christianity about threat and fear, then for us to just simply say, hey, and I don't mean threat and fear of neighbor. I mean, we start with the idea that the reason you follow Jesus is that you don't want to go to hell. You don't start with loving God or how beautiful Christ is or the kingdom coming. You literally start by saying bad things happen if you don't do this the right way. And it's impossible to overcome that whole mode of Christian living by just, saying, hey, guys, love your neighbors as yourselves. This is what you're supposed to do. Yeah, exactly.
So what do we do? What do we do? How do we overcome it?
Well, I always think it starts with what the gospel is. The gospel isn't the removal of threat. The gospel is the introduction of redemption, love, compassion. And so, I could spend time on this, but Brooks kind of gets at it when he talks about what it is to be fully human.
Yeah.
Right. So if Jesus is in dealing with our sin problem, is restoring our humanity, and as a part of that restoration, we learn to live from the overflow of compassion and kindness because we're not under threat. Well, then I'm telling an entirely different Christian story than the narrow Christian story I inherited. And that the new Christian story more naturally leads to compassion for others and social justice concerns because it concerns itself with not just my personal salvation, but rather what it looks like to enflesh the Sermon on the Mount through like embodied community.
Okay. Wow, you guys. I didn't know we were going to co-author a book in real time. I hope somebody recorded that.
No, we just take
What
this
if
episode,
Jesus
drop it into AI, and it'll churn out an ebook
Yes.
for
There you
us.
go. And then we take the Sermon on the Mount, we put it into a large language model, and then we put it into a vacuum cleaner, and we see what it does. It's our own
And it bumps-
experiment.
Oh,
What-
we see
it's-
if it has an existential crisis then.
Yeah, it just
might
wants to
not.
give away all the butter.
And kick the dust off its rollers.
Oh, last week, the United States Conference of Catholic Bishops issued a special message on immigration that was an unmistakable rebuke of the Trump administration and its cruel and punitive immigration crackdown. The conference said, "We're disturbed when we see among our people a climate of fear and anxiety around questions of profiling and immigration enforcement. We're saddened by the state of contemporary debate and the vilification of immigrants." The bishop said they also opposed the indiscriminate mass deportation of people and prayed for an end to dehumanizing rhetoric and violence, whether directed at immigrants or at law enforcement. So the Catholic bishops are doing something that not a whole lot of prominent evangelical leaders seem to be willing to do. They've been heavily encouraged to do this, actually kind of called out to do this by our new Pope, our new Chicago hot dog Pope, Pope Leo.
Hot dog.
He likes hot dogs.
Does he?
He's from Chicago.
I'm from Chicago.
No, you're not.
Well,
Leave
You're
the
from the
gun, take
suburbs.
hot
fine,
dog.
but my multiple generations of Chicagoans in my family. I've
then
been
you
here
should
for a long
like
time.
Chicago hot dogs a little more.
I don't dislike them, but I wouldn't
And
identify
Chicago
myself as
baseball.
a.
Anywho, it's impressive. It's that the Catholic Church is in a position globally where they're not nearly as influenced by the winds of political tides.
Mhm.
And it's one of the ways you start to see the weakness of the fragmentation of Protestantism in America, is that no one seems collectively able to stand against what the people in the pews might be thinking any given
And
day.
that's the key here, because what's really most interesting, I think, about this
Yeah.
is the majority of American Catholics voted for Donald Trump.
Yeah.
But the leaders of the Catholic Church are saying, we don't care if most of our people voted for this guy. What he's doing is contrary to the way of Christ. We're
Yeah.
going to call him out on it.
Yeah.
And I think it's for the reason you said, because it's a global
Yes.
church, not just an American church, whereas evangelicals in America, of course, the majority voted for Donald Trump, and many of their leaders are so dependent on those people
Well,
that they won't contradict them.
evangelicals pick their leaders. Catholics do not.
Well, technically they do.
So it's Catholics pick their leaders.
Well, yeah, it's not Jews who are picking the Catholic leaders, it's other Catholics.
No, but the people in the pews do
Right.
not pick their priests.
Yeah, but there are other Christian denominations that
people in the pews do
Yes.
not pick their priests.
there's a number of factors
How?
here, but here's the point. I think one of the reasons why the evangelical church is in the mess it's in America
Yeah.
is because not enough pastors have marketable skills other than pastoring. And
So good.
as
Hill
a
to die
result,
on right there.
and this
Hill
is-
to die on.
This is Upton Sinclair saying that it's very difficult to get a man to understand something when his salary depends on him not understanding it.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of pastors out there who know if I say what I think I need to say or what I am convicted to say, I may well lose my job and I have no other marketable skill to rely on. And so they remain quiet, and therefore their people are discipled and shaped by their media consumption and the algorithms.
Yeah.
Whereas the Roman Catholics have a different model that if their people rebel on them over this, they're not going to lose their jobs. And I'm not saying it's a better structure of church. I'm just saying I think more pastors would have more courage if they had more marketable skills.
Okay. That's not where I was thinking that story was going to go. But pastors, you need more vocational education. Here's a pamphlet to DeVry. and you can learn
Just saying, there's a benefit to being bivocational.
television repair. That's for sure.
Paul made tents.
Okay.
Yeah.
Check out Foxology Podcast. Mike is teaching us about prayer. He's teaching us about prayer, and he's also talking about Christian nationalism, which
they go together.
Is seemingly become obsessed with just in the last month. He just suddenly turned on Twitter and said, "Holy cow, this is a mess. I got to do something about this with my platform." And there he goes. Thanks for watching, everybody. Thanks for being here, Mike. Have a great week. Keep hopeful. Keep looking out for your neighbors. Keep reading the Bible. Keep following Jesus. And we'll get through this nonsense. See you next week. Bye. The Holy Post is sponsored by Brooklyn Bedding. I don't know about you, but I do much better when I've gotten a good night's sleep. The whole world looks a little brighter. When our daughter needed to improve her sleep, we got her a new mattress from Brooklyn Bedding, and she loves it. Made in America and sold direct to you. It's a high-end mattress experience without the sky-high price. Pick your firmness, your height and dimensions, and get free shipping from their factory in Arizona. Upgrade to Cloud Pillow Top. It's like a pillow that's a cloud on top. Try your new Brooklyn Bedding mattress for up to 120 nights. If you don't love it as much as we do, they'll help you return it or pick out a different one. You've got nothing to lose except a bad night's sleep. Go to brooklynbedding.com and use our promo code HOLYPOST at checkout to get 30% off site-wide. This offer is not available anywhere else. That's brooklynbedding.com and promo code HOLYPOST for 30% off site-wide. Support our show and let them know we sent you after checkout. brooklynbedding.com, promo code HOLYPOST. The Holy Post is sponsored by Rocket Money. I was in a coffee shop talking to a friend and the topic of finances came up. I'm using Rocket Money to track my finances, they said. And I said, I use Rocket Money too. And they said, I know, I use it because I heard about it on your podcast. We had a little Rocket Money fan club right there over our lattes, the expense of which, of course, was duly noted by our Rocket Money accounts. I have to know where my money is going, and Rocket Money has made that easy. Rocket Money is a personal finance app that helps find and cancel your unwanted subscriptions, monitors your spending, and helps lower your bills so you can grow your savings. Rocket Money has saved users more than $2.5 billion, including over $880 million in canceled subscriptions alone. Their 10 million members save up to $740 a year when they use all of the app's premium features. Save money by canceling your unwanted subscriptions and reach your financial goals faster with Rocket Money. Go to rocketmoney.com/holypost today. That's rocketmoney.com/holypost. rocketmoney.com/holypost.
A lot's been said about what sociologists call the big sort. That's the idea that for decades, Americans have been sorting themselves geographically and politically. Increasingly, Republican voters are moving to red states, and Democratic voters are moving into blue cities and states, making the red parts of the country more red and blue parts more blue, with fewer purple communities where people actually interact with and know those from different political parties. Adding to this problem is partisan gerrymandering, which ensures that what diversity does exist in a state doesn't actually get reflected by who's elected there. Amid all of this polarization, Governor Andy Beshear is an anomaly. He's a Democratic governor of a very red state, and a popular one too. Donald Trump won Kentucky by 30 points in 2024, but Governor Beshear also won re-election there by 5 points, a relative landslide for a Democrat in the South. Beshear is also an elder at his church and comfortable talking about his Christian faith, something many other Democrats have struggled with, as evidenced by the widening God gap among voters. All of these unusual qualities have put Governor Beshear on the short list for the presidency in 2028. I had a chance to talk to him about how he's managed to be so popular in a very red state, what lessons he thinks the Democratic Party needs to learn from their recent losses, and what role faith should play in our political discourse as a country. Here is my conversation with Governor Andy Beshear. Governor Beshear, welcome to the Holy Post.
Thanks for having me.
I'm delighted you're here. You are something of a unicorn in the Democratic Party. You are a Democratic governor of a red state, a very red state. Kentucky voted for Donald Trump in this last election, I think by 30 points. And at a time when your party has like unprecedented levels of unfavorable opinion of it in the country, you remain, I think, the most popular Democratic governor in the country. So I've looked at some of the stuff you've done in the media, some write-ups on you. You're something of a sideshow curiosity for some folks. Like, oh, kids, look at this red state with a blue governor. Isn't that kind of weird?
I've been called worse.
So, but there are others who see you as a potential model for how to get this party back on track. So let me begin with this. How do you diagnose what you think has gone wrong in the Democratic Party in this Trump era?
Well, I look less at what's gone wrong than the path to where we right the ship. And the path to where the Democratic Party rights the ship is also a path of good governance, of bringing people back together, of ending this us versus them, which I think is a huge threat to our country. And for me, it's three parts. The first thing that Democrats have to do is spend 80% of our time on things that matter to 100% of the American people. Those are things like your job and whether you can support your family. They're your next doctor's appointment for yourself, your parents, or your kids. The roads and bridges you drive each day, the school you drop your kids off at, and whether you feel safe in your community. And when we get results there, we don't move a state or a country to the right or the left. We just move it forward for everyone. Second thing that we've got to do is get back to talking like normal human beings. Now, talk to people and not at them. Make sure that the language we use isn't overly sanitized. You know, in Kentucky, we've gotten hit by the drug epidemic harder than just about anyone. We've all lost people. I didn't lose one to substance use disorder. I lost them all to addiction. You know, you hear the word addiction. It's mean, it's nasty. It takes people from us that we love. Or when people get through it, when they get into recovery, you know, thank God, they deserve credit for going up against that challenge that many of us could not even imagine. I'll give you another one. Right now, you're seeing Donald Trump refuse to pay full SNAP benefits. We're not going to win that argument by talking about food insecurity. We're going to win it by talking about people going hungry, which is the reality. You know, seniors not being able to sleep because they're hungry, kids not being able to pay attention in school because they're hungry. So number one, 80% of our time on things that matter to 100% of the American people. None of those are political at all. Number two, we talk like normal human beings. But number three, and that's why I love your podcast, is that we've got to not just talk about the what, but the why. Democrats get so focused on policy position 2, subpoint 3, bullet point 4, that we stop telling people why we believe or why we do certain things. And to me, that's my faith. Now, most all of the major policy decisions I make, bills that I veto, things that I support, are about my faith teaching me that we're supposed to build a better world, that we're not supposed to judge each other, that we're supposed to love one another, that everyone should have enough to eat, and that you ought to be doing this job in a way that lifts everyone up and kicks no one while they're down.
Okay, I mean, you just unloaded a lot there that I want to unpack different pieces of. We'll get to the faith stuff in a minute. In a recent New York Times piece, Ezra Klein talked about this problem that Democrats have of their language and being too elitist and talking down to people. He quoted a strategist who's done a bunch of focus groups, and the strategist told him that when he asked people to describe the parties, a lot of people describe the Republicans as crazy, but Democrats as preachy. I don't know if you've heard this.
I have.
And he said, one woman said, I'll take crazy over preachy any day because at least crazy doesn't look down on me. So it sounds like it's not just a problem of rhetoric or language or using things that don't sound like the way real people talk, but there's a view that the Democratic Party actually looks down upon and is preaching towards people who don't share some of the more democratic elite viewpoints, values, and language. How have you avoided that in your state? I mean, obviously, you're very popular as a Democratic governor in a red state. What's made you immune to those accusations?
Well, I talk to people and never at them. I try to listen as much as I talk, but I also always put my people first. You know, my job is to be the best governor of Kentucky I can be, not to be the best Democratic governor of Kentucky. And so when I'm at a opening of a new factory, I'm standing right next to a Republican county judge executive, and I'm giving them credit. Why? Because a new job isn't Democrat or Republican, red or blue. It's just really good for that family. And I think that's why, when we look at, Moody's just did a recent report about states. And they said if each state was a country, how would the economy be? About half of them are in recession. A third of them are flat. We're still growing. And I think we're growing because we've pushed out a lot of the noise, that everything can't be a fight of right versus left, of liberal versus conservative. There are things that we have to work together on, and I think the people of Kentucky see that. But the other thing is you got to show up. For a long time, the National Democratic Party didn't show up in Kentucky, didn't show up in Middle America, didn't show up in the South. And so, in a microcosm, looking at Kentucky, I go everywhere. I go to counties that voted against me 80-20. Why? Because they deserve good jobs too. They deserve safe roads too. And I think because of that, I went from winning my first governor's election by 0.4% to winning by 5% in 2023 in a state Trump would win by 30 the next year.
Yeah. I mean, and again, that's partly why you're seen as a unicorn. You're obviously doing something different than the National Democratic Party. But going back to your point of, jobs aren't red or blue and people care about, the bread and butter issues. There's a data that came out from the Biden administration, the Biden-Harris administration, I should say, that the two biggest legislative wins of that presidency were the Inflation Reduction Act and the CHIPS Act. And it found that the overwhelming majority of spending, and there was a lot of spending in those two bills, the overwhelming majority of the spending actually went to red states and benefited a lot of rural Trump voters. And yet, when the time came for Biden to run for re-election and then, of course, Kamala Harris, those voters did not give the Democratic Party credit for caring about those bread and butter issues or funding their states or creating jobs or building infrastructure. Why do you think that is? Are we too focused on the divisive cultural issues in our national politics, which override those bread and butter jobs and healthcare kind of dynamics?
Well, I would add the bipartisan infrastructure law on those two pieces of legislation because people care about the roads and bridges they travel on a lot.
But they didn't care enough to change their vote.
Yeah. Well, but the Biden-Harris team didn't talk about their infrastructure projects and didn't talk enough and own what those bills had done to help people. So I think that you got to get dirt on your boots, right? You got to get out there. I remember when I was running for re-election in 2023, I'd had I'd had the two best years for economic development ever in the Commonwealth of Kentucky. It was really exciting. But when we first polled who was better for the economy, I was only beating my opponent by 3 to 5 points, and he'd only worked in the private sector 1 year in his life. And he worked for my law firm, which made it a little awkward.
But don't you think that's a case of there's a D next to your name and there's just headwinds for a lot of people because of that?
So we went into the focus groups. That's the listening. And what we saw is that you can't just assume that people know. You got to remind them. And so we'd start talking about, what about the 2 huge battery plants? And somebody would say, oh, wasn't that over $5 billion? And then we'd talk a little bit more. Then you got to micro target too. You've got to show people something that they can feel and touch and see. And so I think about something as small as a mailer that we did. We had a mailer that on the front part was our overall jobs message. We brought in more than anybody else. But on the other side was an announcement from their county. And we have 120 counties. It was something that they could drive by and see, because people don't believe politicians when they're talking about new opportunities that have been brought in. You gotta show them, and you gotta own it. They've got to see that their life is actually getting better. But I will tell you, when you do, people are willing to vote differently, because as much as somebody may care about a culture war issue, if they're struggling to afford their child's next prescription, they'll vote for anybody that can help them there. And so just showing people the proof of 20 new jobs here, 40 new jobs there, the new road that saves you 20 minutes each way, 40 more minutes with your family. Just showing people that, I think, is critical. And at any job that you're in right now, you got to get out there and prove it. I will say I was at all those groundbreakings for factories that were aided by the CHIPS Act or the others. And you know who was sitting next to me? The Republican congressman who voted against it.
Yeah, they wanted to take credit for it too.
They were still there.
Yeah. Okay. Obviously, your name is thrown around a lot as a potential 2028 presidential candidate alongside your fellow governor, Democratic Governor Gavin Newsom from California. But it feels like the two of you represent two very different strategies in this Trump era. And he seems to be taking the fight fire with fire approach and the memification of American politics and using some of the outlandish stunts and tactics that MAGA and the Trump movement have been known for, and putting them up as kind of a mirror to ridicule and get under the skin of the president. Whereas you have taken this more boots on the ground, get dirty, listen, the 80% of your time, or how do you put it, 80% of the time on 100% of what people care about? Like, that's a different tactic. What do you make of those within your party who feel like this isn't a time to be gentle or understanding or empathetic? It's a time to fight, to roll up your sleeves and really defend what you think is essential in America. Even the Prop 50 thing in California, this response to the redistricting in Texas by redistricting in blue states, is that the right approach in this moment?
So I believe all our Democratic governors are fighting, but we all do it in our own style. I mean, I filed lawsuit after lawsuit against this Trump administration, even coming from a state that Trump won overwhelmingly. I sued him over his refusal to pay SNAP benefits, and we got a ruling for at least partial SNAP benefits. And I'll tell you, I had employees that came in at 9 p.m. at night when we got that ruling, worked until 3 a.m. so that people would have dollars on their EBT card the next day and would not go hungry. That was pretty special, and people should give some credit to federal and state employees who go above and beyond to make things happen. Gavin deserves a lot of credit for Prop 50. I wish we didn't have to do it, but if Texas is going to change the rules of the game, then we've all got to play by them. And Gavin's approach generates a lot of energy. Mm-hmm. But what I'd say is it's just not me. Everybody has got to lead in their authentic way. And my goal isn't just to win in the future, which we've got to move on from the Trump administration. We've got to heal the country. And for that, at least in my style, I don't judge voters. I will judge this president. And when you're president, you're going to be judged and you're going to be criticized. But you've got to have room, and whether that's in the Democratic Party or how people will vote, to welcome people back in. In my mind, our country needs our McCarthyism moment where we take a breath and people realize, okay, that went too far, and then they come back together, because the post-Trump America can't be as divided as it is right now, and that's going to require that we all are a little bit kinder to each other.
Well, let's talk about one of those issues that unfortunately is kind of divisive. You mentioned faith earlier. We have a friend of the podcast, the Holy Post pundit and sociologist Ryan Burge. He writes all the time about the intersection of faith and politics. And he's written a lot about the Democrats having a God problem. And that's not exactly new. There's been a gap in religious voters between the two parties for some time, but it seems to be growing worse for Democrats, particularly among religious Black and Latino voters who are moving further away from your party. And we saw in 2024, they voted for Trump in numbers that a lot of people hadn't expected. Why do you think that is happening? Why does your party struggle to attract and maintain those who have a strong religious faith?
I think for the longest time, people in my party were scared to talk about faith. We're worried that it would be viewed negatively, I guess, within or by the pundits. But I think that was a huge mistake, because if your faith is your authentic why, you're not being real with people without talking about it. And when you look at the different policies of the Democratic Party, you look at trying to lift people up. You look at the parable of the Good Samaritan. Would Donald Trump stop and help that person on the side of the road, or would he kick him while he's down? I mean, for me, faith isn't just about talking about it; it's trying to live it. And just look at the government shutdown that it looks like we're about to come out of. The congressional Republicans will not vote to extend ACA tax credits, which means people are going to lose their health care. Jesus said a doctor's for the sick, but now a lot of people who are sick aren't going to be able to see a doctor. Look at the Trump administration going above and beyond to refuse to fund SNAP benefits, even though a court said that they could. The miracle of the fishes and loaves is in every book of the gospel, meaning it's pretty darn important. I talk about it because it is my why, but Democrats need to stop being scared to talk about their authentic why. And if it's faith, grab a hold of it. live by it, communicate through it. Make sure you spread the good news with the world, and it helps you to push through the toughest of times when you're doing the right thing by your God.
Is part of the dilemma that the coalition of Democratic voters includes those very faith-motivated Latino and Black voters, but also it's where most non-religious nuns, as they're called, especially white college-educated voters, find themselves, and they, in many cases, are allergic to religious rhetoric, talk, ideas, the use of scripture. And so you're in this impossible situation that if you do speak authentically about your faith and the way it intersects with your public policy, you risk alienating that end of the party?
Well, what I've seen in Kentucky, and we have all parts of the Democratic Party, and then we have a lot of people from other parties, is as long as it's real and people can see you're doing the right thing, as long as you're not pushing it on people, but explaining how it impacts you, that it is not only accepted, but appreciated. Because all members, hopefully, of any party want good people in office. And I think it's just a way to be able to explain yourself and your decisions in terms that people can respect.
You mentioned needing to sue the Trump administration to get SNAP benefits and the reluctance of Republicans in Congress to open up the government or to allow the extension of the ACA benefits. Where do you see the MAGA movement and today's GOP as being inconsistent with Christian values that they seem to champion all the time? Obviously, they love to trumpet their identity as Christians or as evangelicals. Where do you see that being hypocritical or inconsistent?
Well, I try not to judge voters. What I would say about the president and right now congressional Republicans is the level of cruelty that they show, how they speak about people, trying to create an enemy from your neighbor. I do not believe is Christian. We're taught the golden rule that we love our neighbor as ourselves. And the parable of the Good Samaritan says everyone is our neighbor. Yet you see Donald Trump at a memorial service after Charlie Kirk's widow lives out faith and talks about forgiveness, saying the exact opposite, saying, I hate my enemies. That is the opposite of what we are taught from that most important instruction. You think about, Jesus was tougher than the nails that pinned him to the cross. He could have chosen at any time to smite all of his opponents. He was tempted to be the type of gaudy ruler that I think our president feels like he is. Yet Jesus refused to be the Prince of Power. He chose to be the Prince of Peace. And so I think all of those are examples about how the president is not living out at least my faith, which tells us that we don't judge, that we help those in need, and that we never make an enemy out of our neighbor. This enemy within talk is incredibly dangerous, and again, don't believe it's very, very Christian.
On the flip side, are there any areas where you find your faith in tension with the platform or policies of your own political party?
Well, I think that in the past there's been a lot of judgment in different parts of the Democratic Party. That also, judge not lest ye be judged. Needing to be a little more open, to listen. These litmus tests that if you're not 100% on all these different issues, then maybe you're not welcome. And I don't see that being the case today. I think there were certainly some challenges along the way, but as we sit here today, the Democratic Party is becoming a bigger tent party where the Republicans are narrowing. If you don't follow and agree with one person, and that's the president, you're currently not welcome in that Republican Party. That's something that I hope that they can move beyond too, because again, if I'm going to love my neighbor as myself, I've got to want Republicans to be successful too. And I want their kids to be really successful.
Yeah, I don't think you can argue much with the fact that the Republican Party does have a litmus test, and it is fidelity to Donald Trump and whatever he might want. And I also hope we do need two healthy parties in this country and hope they are able to move beyond that. But the Democratic Party has certainly had its litmus tests. For example, there used to be a time, and your state is an example of this and many others in the South, where there were a lot of pro-life Democrats elected to state and federal offices. That's really rare these days. Is there room in your party for an elected official who's pro-life, or even an elected official who thinks there is some room for limitations on access to abortion, more in line with what you see in Western Europe?
Well, I mean, you go back to Roe v. Wade itself, and Roe v. Wade, which Democrats said they were for, allowed for reasonable restrictions. And so it says that there's some gray in everything. The idea that every Democrat thinks one way and every Republican thinks another is a total fiction. Most people don't think about either party during their day at all. And we're all shaped by different experiences. We're all shaped by maybe different whys, how we were raised, how our faith plays into how we think and how we feel. And so we've got to, both as political parties, make sure that we're a little more accepting, but also as people. Well, I think it's really important for the country.
Obviously, there's a huge spectrum in this country of people who might vote one way or another, whose views differ in a lot of ways. But when it comes to being an elected official, I mean, to be blunt, I don't know if this is true in your administration in Kentucky, but if you were to seek higher office, would you be comfortable appointing people to positions, whether endorsing them as elected officials or within an administration, who don't hold to the party line on some of this stuff, or who have more nuanced views on abortion?
Absolutely. Well, just generally, the people that I appoint in my cabinets, I don't sit down and talk to them about their political views on this and that. I look at how effective they can be. I mean, the most important thing for the next presidential administration is going to be to deliver for the American people, to bring down costs, to build more housing so that we address this shortage, to restore faith in the American dream. You know, yes, you run as a member of a political party, but if you're doing these things right, you govern to better people's lives. And so I've never sat down with a questionnaire. I've never given a questionnaire to anybody I've hired. I've always looked at who is the best person to get results for the people of Kentucky and to move the administration forward. But now I think when you look at reproductive rights, you're looking at something very different. So in my last election in Kentucky, it was the level of extremism in our current law that made people uncomfortable. We've got a law in Kentucky that's so draconian that we don't have any weeks where you have access, and there are no exceptions even for rape or incest or non-viable pregnancies. And I would tell you that extremism in many ways has united Kentuckians, because about 80% of Kentuckians believe a rapist shouldn't have more rights than his victim. And so I think what you see on all of these, what used to be, unfortunately, wedge issues are more nuanced because the laws are a little bit different now in different states. But I think what we see across America is a rejection of extremism and a willingness to vote against candidates that engage in it or for candidates that don't.
Yeah, I concur with your read on that. I think most Americans are in that grayer area. But what's fascinating is we've seen the Republican Party, which was stridently pro-life in all cases for decades, abandon that position since overturning Roe. And Donald Trump has removed those planks from his party's platform. Despite the rhetoric that they're pro-life, the number of abortions in this country have gone up since Roe was overturned. And the Republican Party has drifted from that stridently pro-life position. On the flip side, since the overturning of Roe, the Democratic Party seems like its rhetoric has gotten more strident in not putting any limitations of any kind on access to abortion. So have the roles of these parties flipped, where the Democrats used to be more in line with Roe, saying there is room for some restriction, but now in response to Trump and the overturning of Roe, it's become strident and saying no restrictions at all?
Well, I think what you're hearing is a reaction to extremism, especially in places where there's just zero access. I think about couples in Kentucky that wanted to get pregnant for so long, that tried really hard, and then get the news after rejoicing that they're pregnant, that their child is not going to make it, that they're going to either at the birth hear the last cries of their child or hear nothing at all. As the dad of two, and I viewed the birth of both of my children as absolute miracles. I cannot imagine that. But the laws in my state, passed by a Republican supermajority, put couple after couple after couple through that. And I tell you, I've seen the most, they would have described themselves as the most conservative Republican that end up going through that or watch somebody go through that. and their views change entirely.
Again, Governor, I agree. I think the Republican Party has heard that and gotten the lesson that their extreme absolutism on this issue is not what the American people want. And that's why they've backed off of it. I'm just wondering, has the Democratic Party gotten the message that its extreme view on unlimited access on all fronts is also not what most Americans believe?
I think most Americans believe that Roe had it just about right, that it was legal, safe, but with reasonable restrictions, that a court could come in and judge, and that were based on science. That's certainly where I've always been, and I think it's the right place for the country to hopefully one day get back to.
But that doesn't seem like where your party currently is.
Well, I've never checked with my party on my views. I've always been who I am, and will continue to do so.
Okay, before we wrap up, I want to talk about just current events, and we're recording this, as you said, just as it seems like the government shutdown appears to be ending. But there's a bit of a debate going on in your party over whether the 8 Democratic senators who accepted this deal from the Republicans did the right thing. Should they have held out longer? What's your take on this? Was the decision by these 8 senators, Democratic senators, to reopen the government the right move at this time, or would you have advocated holding out longer to ensure that some of the things they wanted in this shutdown actually were accomplished?
Yeah, so it looks like the shutdown is ending. And so when I look at it, nobody wins in a shutdown. But I think the legacy that we're going to look back on is Republicans lost this shutdown, because 2 things are very clear coming out of it: that Republicans will not help the American people with health insurance premiums about to skyrocket. They simply will not help and extend those tax credits. Every American who sees their health insurance go up is going to be crystal clear now on who caused it and how it could be prevented. The other thing that the American people are seeing and reacting to is that we have a president who's supported by the Republicans in Congress that is willing to let people starve as leverage, that was told by a court he could fully fund SNAP benefits. And you know what he did? He went to court to try to get a ruling saying he doesn't have to. You know, those are 2 things that I think are really going to hurt Republicans coming up in the midterms, but they're also things that I hope that as a party they will reconsider, because we always ought to put our people first. And if somebody's going hungry, it doesn't matter what party they're in. I mean, they're an American, or even if they're not, they're a child of God, and we all have a duty to them.
So one of the trends we've seen over the last 10 years is in mid-cycle elections or off-year elections, the Democrats tend to do very well. And part of that is, I think, for obvious reasons, a lot of Americans are exhausted by the Trump chaos that they see. Do you fear, I fear, your party is learning the wrong lesson from this, that if we just hold out and let Donald Trump implode, the country will get exhausted again and put us back into power without actually doing the hard work of looking at what the Democratic Party might need to change or do differently to move us in a healthier direction? You've talked about trying to heal this nation. And my assumption is that means not just waiting for one party to implode so that you can step back in. Final word, what do you hope your party learns from this era? And when you look back on it, what do you hope has changed in American politics from where we are now?
I think if you look at my reelection in 2023, and then the elections of Abigail Spanberger in Virginia and Mikey Sherrill in New Jersey, you see not just a way to win, but a way to govern. It is less political, that it is less polarizing. It is focused on people's everyday needs at a time when the American people are struggling. You know, right now, polling shows, I think over half of Americans don't believe the American dream is real anymore. That idea that if you work hard and play by the rules that you can get ahead, I mean, for the future of our country, for future prosperity for our country, we have to do the hard work to make sure that American dream is real and that it's available for all of our people. And so that's not necessarily getting out there on all the issues the pundits want to throw at you, but they're making sure you have better jobs with better wages. They're making sure you can control the cost of electricity. It's making sure that you can afford a house in the same general age that your parents did, because right now We have whole generations that don't think they'll ever be able to own a house, and a 50-year mortgage is not the answer to that. It's making sure that we address housing in America. It's also listening to people. When people say they don't feel safe in their community, the response isn't to cite them a bunch of statistics. It's to do the hard work to make them safer, and that's not sending National Guard in. That's a stunt. It's having more police officers. It's having more intervention with youth. It's addressing recidivism by teaching skills in our prisons and in our jails so that people don't reoffend. So I hope, as we look into the future, not just the Democratic Party, but the Republican Party, say, okay, we can disagree 20% of the time, but in that 80%, let's do the things that move America forward for all of our people. Let's do those non-political things that matter most to people, and let's make sure that we are Americans first and Democrats and Republicans fourth, fifth, or sixth.
Well, I think a whole lot of people listening to this would agree with that last idea. Governor Beshear, thank you so much for your time and for speaking into this moment and trying to be a voice of unity and sanity in a time when a lot of us are feeling like things are getting out of control. Appreciate that. Thank you for being with us.
Well, God's good even when it's tough. We'll get through this.
Hey, everybody, if you like the video, like and subscribe so you can see more and other people can too.